On Father's Day, my daughter Olivia handed me a pair of socks. $15. The kind of gift you grab on your way out of the store. Not the kind you plan ahead of time. She smiled at me as if she'd given me a treasure. And maybe, once, I would have wanted to believe it. But that same night, I glimpsed something else. A Rolex. $10,000. Resting on her father-in-law's wrist. Paid for, with my money. And when I asked about it, Olivia's words cut deeper than she knew. Dad, it was a vital expense. That's when the calls started. 17 in a row. Her voice cracked, pleading. Dad, don't do this. Please, don't do this. But by then, I had already entered a dead-end path. A path that left no room for regret. Before continuing, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. The sun spilled through my living room windows that morning, painting golden rays on the old sofa. I sat there waiting for Olivia. My daughter had promised a Father's Day surprise, and despite the years of silence, of disappointments disguised as busyness, a small spark of hope still burned within me. The clock on the mantel ticked mercilessly. Each second echoed like a reminder of everything she'd poured into her life. 20 years since her mother died. 20 years of sacrifice. Every scar etched on my hands, every ache in my bones, had been for Olivia Dot. The scent of lemon lingered in the Erelon's touch. My late wife had loved to keep the house spotless. That smell was all I had left of her. Well, that and the photographs. Those frames lined the mantel like silent witnesses. Olivia with a missing tooth, smiling for the camera. Me at her graduation, eyes swollen with pride. Our family frozen in time, untouched by betrayal. When the doorbell finally rang, my heart leapt. I opened the door, and there stood Olivia. Her brown hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, a designer coat hugging her shoulders too polished, too far into this modest Chicago suburb. She was holding a gift bag, tissue paper tucked carelessly inside, and behind her Liam, my son-in-law, a shadow with a cocky grin. His loafers gleamed, his posture screamed arrogance. He leaned against the doorframe like he owned everything, like he owned her. "Happy Father's Day, Dad," Olivia said. Her voice was sweet, but not soft. Sweet like a sharp blade hidden in sugar. He pushed the bag into my hands. His smile was stiff, rehearsed. "Thanks, honey," I murmured, my fingers brushing the tissue paper. The bag was empty, hollow. Still, I sat back down on the couch, his eyes fixed on me. Olivia, hopeful. Liam, amused. The ticking of the clock grew louder, or maybe it was just the pounding in my ears. Reached in and felt the fabric. Thin. Ordinary. I pulled out a pair of navy blue socks. The tag hung off like an insult. $15. A silence fell. My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. "Socks," I said, holding them up. Practical. I've always dreamed of these." Olivia left, quickly, too fragilely. "Exactly. Something useful, right? It's not like you need anything fancy." Her nails gleamed as she adjusted her scarf, the gesture casual but deliberate, as if reminding me that I was old, that I was simple, that I was beneath her world now. Liam laughed. "Yes, Paul, you're a simple guy. You don't need anything extravagant." His tone dripped with contempt, each word heavier than the socks on my hands. I nodded, folding the gift with deliberate care. My voice remained calm, but my fingers trembled. Out of the corner of my eye, Ellen's photograph stared back at me. Those soft eyes, asking the question I didn't want to face. Had I failed? Had I failed at raising our daughter? I cleared my throat. "Are you staying for coffee?" The words tasted bitter before they left. Olivia looked at her phone. "No. We're having dinner with William tonight. You know how he is always the host." She shared a fleeting glance with Liam. Something passed between them, a flash of triumph, or perhaps a secret. Either way, it burned. Minutes later, they left. The house was silent, emptier than before. The ticking of the clock became a hammer against my skull. I carried the socks into the kitchen, just to get moving, just to keep my hands busy. But the gift bag caught on the edge of the counter, tearing like a cheap promise. I put on my socks and reached for a cup. My hands were shaking. Then the memories flooded back. $40,000 a year in tuition, gone. My dream of a boat, of retiring on the water, gone. Sold for its future, for its happiness. And here he was, wearing socks. The cup flew from my hands, shattering against the floor. The impact echoed like thunder. Jagged fragments scattered across the linoleum. Sharp, dangerous, impossible to put back together. Just like us. I stood there, staring at the pieces. My chest rose and fell, ragged. The question clawed at me, louder than the ticking of the clock. Had it all been in vain? I bent down, sweeping the shards into my palm. The edges bit into my skin, drawing fine red lines, but I didn't flinch. The pain was nothing compared to the storm brewing inside me, because something had broken. And once it's broken, there's no going back. The kitchen was too quiet, too still. Only the faint smell of coffee lingered, bitter and comforting, but unable to calm the storm churning in my chest. Her words echoed in my head, Olivia's voice. Light but cold. Something useful. Right? That's what he said as he handed me the socks. Socks. The kind you find in a bargain bin, thrown into a gift bag as an afterthought. I looked at them now, lying on the counter, mocking me with their silence. I wondered when exactly my daughter stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as a wallet with a pulse. My laptop glowed in front of me, a habit from years of night shifts and endless emails. But that night, I wasn't working. I clicked on social media, anything to distract myself, and that's when I saw it. A photo, posted just an hour ago. Olivia's profile. My breath caught. William. Liam's father, sitting in a fancy downtown restaurant, smiling broadly, his wrist extended across the table. On it gleamed a Rolex. Not just any watch, but a statement one, the kind that screams money, power, status. His caption cut deeper than glass. To the best father, a gift that matches your class. My blood froze. I clicked on the image, zooming in until the pixels blurred. The face of that clock gleamed under the restaurant lights, and my stomach lurched. Because I remembered. I remembered the call from 2 months ago. Her voice trembling, fragile. Dad, I need $10,000. It's vital, medical stuff, and I sent him without hesitation, without question, because that's what parents do, isn't it? They trust. They sacrificed that now. That sacrifice burned on another man's wrist. My hands trembled. The socks lay forgotten. The clock kept ticking down the years I'd given it. Each night, shift. Each balanced bill. Each dream postponed for its future. Something inside me snapped. Not a scream. Not an explosion, but a quiet click, like a bolt clicking into place. 17 missed calls. Olivia's number flashing up on my phone again and again. Her voice, frantic, almost pleading. Dad, don't do this. But she couldn't know that I was no longer the man she'd once called. Dad. I was already walking down a path of no return. The light outside weakened. Storm clouds gathered, smothering the afternoon sun. The room felt colder, the air thicker. The cup I'd broken earlier was still in the trash, its shards catching the faint glow of the laptop. And yet, that Rolex burned in my eyes. A gift that matches your class. My fingers hovered over the keys, trembling, as if typing might summon some explanation, some mistake. But there was none. Only betrayal. I slammed my laptop shut. The sound broke the silence. My chair scraped against the tile as I stood, breathing heavily, anger clawing at my chest. I grabbed my jacket. But the socks remained on the counter. Their tags hung like an accusation. Outside, the Chicago suburbs stretched out in false perfection. Manicured lawns, blooming azaleas, the illusion of harmony. But underneath, rot lies. The storm in the sky mirrored the storm inside me. The air smelled of damp grass, heavy, with the rain still to fall. My phone vibrated in my pocket again. Olivia's name. Call number 17. I let it vibrate against my thigh, ignoring it, just as I ignored her echoing words. Dad, don't do this. What did she expect? For him to forgive her. For him to smile and nod, pretending he hadn't seen anything. My steps led me to the park, a place of old ghosts. The swings creaked slightly in the wind. The wooden bench waited. I sat down, the wood groaning under my weight, and looked at the empty swing before me. A memory surfaced unexpectedly. Olivia, 6 years old. Pigtails bouncing, her laughter spilling into the summer air. I'll always be your little girl, Daddy. I believed in her. Then, God, I believed in her. But that promise was as hollow as the gift bag he had thrust into my hands. The Rolex flashed in my mind again, its polished face mocking me. Paul, he's that you. The voice brought me out of my trance. Carol, my neighbor, trotting along, his spaniel straining on the leash. His round face flushed, friendly as ever. I forced a smile, standing up quickly, trying to hide the inner storm. I didn't expect to see you here, he said, reining in the dog. I thought you'd be celebrating with Olivia. The celebration is over, I muttered, my voice flatter, darker than I intended. Carl tilted his head, curious, but I waved him off. I just needed to walk. He nodded, scratching the dog's ears. Then, Kazalili delivered the final blow. I saw your girl downtown last month. At that fancy jewelry store on Oak Street. She looked like she was picking something big. He laughed, oblivious to the explosion. I guess you like expensive things. Huh. My throat tightened. The playground spun, the swing sets blurring in my vision. Oak Street. The jewelry store, the Rolex. It was no longer just a suspicion. It was a fact. My daughter had taken my money and wrapped it around another man's wrist. Carl kept talking. Something about the weather, about how the clouds were swirling, getting thicker, heavier, but his words blurred, became background noise. I barely heard him. My mind was somewhere else, entirely racing. Scratching at fragments of memory, trying to piece them together into a picture I didn't want to see that Olivia. Not in a doctor's office, not in a waiting room with outdated magazines and the faint smell of disinfectant, like she'd told me. No, she was under bright lights, in a store full of velvet display cases, swiping my credit card on polished marble to buy a watch worth more than most people's cars, and not for her Folium. The thought sank deeper with each breath, sharper, heavier, a betrayal so precise it felt like a blade slowly turning inside me. Carl adjusted his cap, mumbled something about having to get home before the rain came. Ewabed Tumi trotted down the path, disappearing into the row of trees. And suddenly, I was alone with the truth pressing against my chest, suffocating me. The first drops of rain touched my jacket soft, cold, stinging drops that spread like stains over the fabric. I stood still, watching the swing sway in the empty park, the chains creaking faintly in the wind. That swing had once been Olivia's, a reliquary of a life that had crumbled without me even realizing it, a life that was gone. When I returned home, each step was heavier, the rhythm of my shoes on the wet pavement marking a tempo of anger that no longer burned hot, but settled into something colder, sharper, concentrated. Olivia had lied, Liam had laughed, and I, my God, had been the fool who trusted them both. Back in the kitchen, nothing had changed. The socks still lay crumpled on the floor, dull and colorless, pathetic. A cruel contrast to the gleam of a Rolex on Liam's wrist, a cheap fabric compared to $10,000 of stolen trust. I opened my laptop again. The photograph of Liam's cocky grin and the glowing watch filled the screen, frozen in digital permanence, but my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady now, unnervingly steady. Oak Street Jewelry Store, I typed. The words, heavy, deliberate, each keystroke, a nail in the coffin of my remaining hopes. The search results appeared, the gleaming website flashing on the screen, a beacon of confirmation. A plan was beginning to form, clear and unwavering. The rain pounded harder against the window, faster, a steady percussion that matched the pounding in my chest. It wasn't just the weather anymore. It was time, pushing me forward, whispering that there was no turning back. The next morning, I was behind the wheel, the storm still lingering. The rain pounded relentlessly against the windshield as I pulled into a parking lot near Oak Street. The wipers swiped back and forth with a rhythmic sound, the only noise in the stifling silence of the car. On the passenger seat, tucked into my jacket pocket, was a folded printout of Liam's Rolex circled in red ink. Evidence, proof. Yesterday's shock had hardened overnight into something more. Cold, relentless. A hunger for truth, no matter how much it hurt. The Chicago skyline rose through the drizzle, towers of glass and steel indifferent to the storm raging inside me. To them, I was just another dot moving in the rain. But inside me, I was unraveling. I got out of the car. The air was sharp, thick with the smell of wet pavement, car exhaust, and faint notes of expensive perfume wafting from nearby boutiques. My shoes splashed in shallow puddles as I crossed the street. Up ahead, the jewelry store's sign gleamed against the gray sky. Bright, clean, untouched. A beacon of truth or damnation. Inside, the world changed. The polished marble floors gleamed beneath chandeliers that scattered fragmented rainbows over the glass display cases. The air was heavier there, scented with richness and guarded by silence. It was not a place for men in worn jackets and scuffed shoes, and the young saleswoman approaching knew it. His smile was polished, rehearsed just like his suit. "Welcome, sir. Are you looking for anything special today?" His tone was warm, but his eyes betrayed a quick glance down, a silent judgment. He didn't belong there. Neither did Olivia, but she'd walked these same floors, smiling, spending money that wasn't hers. I steadied myself. "I need information." His eyebrow raised slightly. I pulled the folded form out of my pocket, spreading it out on the glass display case. Liam's wrist, the Rolex, the proof. "This watch," I said, my voice low but even. "Was it bought here?" She studied the image, and something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. My stomach tightened, a coil coiling tighter and tighter. She hesitated, then looked toward the back. A man stood there, older, bold, dressed in a sharp suit that spoke of authority. He met her gaze, gave a brief nod. She took the paper from me and slipped behind a velvet curtain, without another word. The silence became heavy, oppressive. The faint ticking of a clock on the wall cut through the air, each second stretching further than the last. That sound again. Time, always ticking, always mocking. I thought of Olivia's voicemail from last night. Her voice was high, desperate. "Dad, please, just talk to me." I'd let it ring, listening to the crack in her tone, but she hadn't called back. Not yet. The curtain opened. The older man appeared, paper in hand. His presence carried weight. Authority. "I'm Mr. Kessler," he said, his voice measured and professional. "This is a Rolex Daytona." "Yes, we sold one like that in March." He held the paper out toward me, his gaze sharp and appraising. "May I ask why you're inquiring?" My throat tightened, but I forced my voice to remain calm. "It was a gift. I need to confirm it was purchased here, and who bought it." I slid my credit card statement across the counter. The $10,000 charge was circled in red, like a wound on the page. "This is my account. Was it used for the purchase?" Kessler's expression softened, the tiniest flicker of understanding breaking through his professional shell. He tapped a sleek tablet. His eyes narrowed, scanning. A moment passed. Then he nodded. "The transaction paid in full, March 15th. Looked up. A young woman made the purchase. She was accompanied by a man. She said it was for a relative." His words fell like blows, each syllable heavier than the last. "Olivia. Liam. My money." My voice was now a growl, barely contained. "Was the watch real?" Kessler's brow furrowed. "Absolutely. We don't deal in counterfeits. That piece cost $10,200 with taxes." He paused, his gaze sharp as he studied me. "Is there a problem, sir?" I forced a thin, fragile smile. "No problem. I just needed to know." I picked up the paper, the statement, and folded them carefully, as if handling evidence in a trial that hadn't even begun yet. The store lights suddenly felt too bright, the air too thick, pressing down on me. I thanked him, though the words scraped like glass in my throat, and turned. The doorbell rang faintly as I stepped back into the rain. The world was gray again, blurred by the water sliding down the windows and pooling in the gutters. My shoes splashed in shallow puddles, each step echoing the truth I could no longer escape. There was no turning back. The truth was mine now. Brutal, ugly, worse than I had ever imagined. I sat in the car, engine off, the outside world swallowed by the rain. The form was crumpled in my fist, the paper damp with sweat and storm. Every drop on the windshield blurred the world beyond. But in my mind, Olivia's face was crystal clear. Not the woman who had just lied to me, but the little girl I knew, though. One who cried when I cleaned her scraped knee. The one who had once held my hand as if it were the only safe place in the world. And then her voice, just 2 months ago, soft and trembling. "It's for medical bills, Dad. I wouldn't ask for it if I wasn't serious." I believed him. Without hesitation, I transferred the money. I felt proud to have helped. I felt like a father again. Now I felt like a fool. The reflection in my rearview mirror surprised me. Gray hair, tired eyes, but something new. A hardness that wasn't there before. The man staring back at me wasn't the Pole smiling politely into a pair of Christmas stockings. No. This man was done being manipulated. In the passenger seat, my phone lit up again, Olivia's name flashing like a warning flare. 20 missed calls, stacked on top of each other. 20 tiny daggers of guilt she wanted me to feel. My thumb hovered over her name, the screen shining against the dark storm of the car like a loaded gun. Outside, the rain pounded harder, a relentless drumbeat for the confrontation to come. My chest tightened. My pulse roared in my ears. The countdown had begun. I pressed call. The doorbell rang, cold and hollow. Then a clicker voice burst through the static, high-pitched and impatient. "Dead finally. Why weren't you answering?" Her tone wasn't regretful. There was no fear. It was relief, mixed with irritation, as if I'd been the one neglecting her, as if I owed her something. I clenched my jaw. I gripped the steering wheel, the slick leather biting into my palm. My words came out slowly, deliberately. "I've been busy. I had to check something. I let the silence breathe, then dropped the hammer, like a $10,000 Rolex. The words hung heavy. For a moment, all I heard was the storm, the rain hitting the roof like a judge's gavel. I could almost see her, pacing that spotless living room, her nails tapping against her phone. His voice broke as he answered, "What are you taking about?" The tremor gave her away. She was desperate. I leaned forward, eyes fixed on the channels of water running down the glass like tears I refused to shed. I went to the store, Olivia, Oak Street. Oak Street. They confirmed it. "You used my card. For William." Each word fell like a stone in water. Heavy, undeniable. There was a pause. Crack. Then her brittle laugh spilled over the line. "God, you always make a mountain out of nothing. It was a gift, okay? William has done so much for us. You wouldn't understand." His condescension was sharp, but beneath it I heard it. Panic. Desperation. "A gift," I repeated, my tone flat and hollow. "With my own money. You told me it was for medical bills. Vido, you said." My free hand bowled into a fist, nails digging into my palm until it hurt. "What else have you lied to me about?" His voice rose, now shrill. "This is none of your business. You can't control me anymore. I'm not a child. Dad. The word wasn't tender. It was poison. An arrow shot straight into my chest. And in that moment, I remembered her at 16, begging for a designer dress, promising me she'd make me proud. I believed her then. Not anymore. "Then act like an adult," I said, my voice icy. "Explain it." "Explain it." The storm outside swelled, the rain a curtain, sealing me inside this reckoning. On the other end of the line, her breathing was ragged and labored. She was cornered, and she knew it. "You're so mean," he hissed. "I don't have time for this." The line went dead. The silence was deafening, louder than the storm. His words, petty, ridiculous. "None of your business," occurred in my skull until they burned. My chest ached, but it wasn't pain anymore. It was resolve. Cold. Unyielding. I opened the door. The rain hit me, soaking my jacket, chilling my skin. It woke me up. It cleared my head. Standing in the downpour, I pulled out my phone. The screen slicked beneath my wet fingers. I opened the notes app and began to type. Every word he'd thrown at me, Chuan, a brick, a record, evidence, a case I was building, stone by stone. The street was empty. The houses glowed with warmth, families safe within their cocoons of light, but I was no longer in that world. Olivia thought she could ignore me, make fun of me, erase me. He was wrong, and I was about to find out. With all my might, the rain clung to the city like a second skin. Cold, relentless, soaking the pavement until each puddle became a mirror of a life I barely recognized. I leaned against the hood of my car, the water pooling at my feet, and let Ellen's voice echo in my head. "Don't let anyone walk all over you, Paul." That was his promise, his prayer for me, a vow he'd broken too many times, especially with Olivia. My daughter, my blood. The one person I thought I was protecting. But there, drenched by rain and regret, I learned the truth. I hadn't been protecting her. I'd been enabling her. And that ended tonight. My phone vibrated in my pocket, sharp against the silence. An unknown number. The screen blurred by the rain. Double quotes, "Mr. Thompson. I'm Elaine Carter, attorney. I heard you might need some help. See you tomorrow, 9 a.m., 200 North, LaSalle." I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over reply. A stranger. But a lifeline. The clock in my head ticked down, not toward the past, but toward something new. Morning arrived like a blade of light slicing through the blinds. Streaks of sunlight lay across a desk buried in papers and half-empty cups. Elaine Carter's office was alive with chaos-style espresso. Antique books stacked to the ceiling, a kind of organized madness. Outside, the steel and glass of Chicago gleamed with power. Inside, it smelled of battles fought and won. I sat across from her, my bank statements spread out like an autopsy report. Black ink scars from every lie, every betrayal. Olivia's voice from the night before still burned in my ears, her venom piercing the phone. "You're so mean." But here, in this crammed office, I felt the first glimmer of something dangerous, something powerful. Possibility. Elaine leaned back in her chair, her gray blazer wrinkled, but her eyes razor sharp. "So," he said, tapping a pen on the desk, "your daughter has a taste for rope and a talent for lying." His tone was direct, almost playful, but each word cut to the bone. "That sums it up," I muttered, staring at the $10,000 charge screaming from the page. A wound I had paid for. She smiled wryly. Father's Day. Socks. A Rolex for her. Sons have nerve, but nerve doesn't. Buy watches. His words hit me harder than I expected. I clenched my jaw. I had no reply. "You want to protect what's yours? Right?" he pressed. I swallowed. My throat was dry. "Yes, I just don't know where to start. She's my daughter." The words weighed heavily, a confession of weakness. I'd given everything to Olivia after Ellen died. My whole life leaned toward her. Every dollar, every sacrifice. I never traveled. I never indulged myself. I built her future with my hands, my years, and she thanked me with lies. Elaine's eyes softened, but her voice was iron. "You're not the first father he's burned, Paul. And you want to tell us. Unless you take action." He slid a contract toward me, the paper cold and sharp between my fingers. "I can help you. First, we freeze your access. Then, we investigate. Primera cita. Dead." Memories of Olivia's wedding flashed back. Her hand on my arm, that radiant smile as she signed my Italian vacation dreams with a single check. I told myself it was love. Now I saw it for what it was, a transaction. I placed the pen on the page and signed. A silent oath. Elaine smiled slightly, stacking the papers. "Fine. We'll start with the bank. Every transaction he touched, we'll uncover." "But, Paul?" Her eyes bore into mine. "This won't just be about money. It's about family. Are you ready for that?" I stood up and walked to the window. Chicago stretched out below, relentless, indifferent. My reflection in the glass looked older, harder. "I've given him everything," I said quietly. "Now, I'm going to get something back." The bank's marble floor gleamed like ice under the fluorescent lights. The air was cold, buzzing with the constant drone of the overheated air conditioner. I stood at the counter, the form in my hand like a declaration of war. Olivia's name was there, printed neatly, forever tied to my credit. For 20 years she had lived off my sacrifice. But the gleam of that Rolex, here is near. "You're so mean." I placed the pen on the paper and signed. The crack of the ink sounded like thunder. The manager looked up, wire-rimmed glasses reflecting the light. "This will take effect immediately. Secondary user Olivia Thompson will be notified. Notified. Good. Sorry. Thank you," I murmured, handing the paper back. My face was calm, but my chest was heaving. It wasn't just a card. It was dignity. Mine. Later, in a cafe filled with chatter and espresso steam, I slid into the seat opposite Elaine. She already had her laptop open, a half-eaten scone beside her. "Well?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Signed and done. It's cut." The words came out firm, solid, like a door slamming shut. Elaine smiled. I bet he'll like it even more than the socks. Her dry humor pierced my armor, and I almost laughed. His eyes soft. Your daughter is about to learn what a practical gift really means. He tapped the laptop. I'm pulling records, impulse purchases, hidden accounts wheel. Find it all, but you need to be prepared for what we discover. I nodded, sipping my coffee. Bitter, strong, just right for my mood. I need to know everything, I said. In my mind, Olivia's wedding played out again the trust I'd given her like a loaded gun. Now, finally, I saw it greed for what it was. Elaine leaned toward me, her voice low. You're not just doing this to punish her, Paul. You're doing this for yourself. Don't forget that. His words resonated deeper than I expected. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not just as a father, but as a man. My phone vibrated, cutting off the murmur of the coffee. Olivia's name lit up the screen. Calling. Urgent. Angry, you let it ring when it finished. The voicemail icon flashed like a red warning light. I pressed play. His voice burst out, sharp and furious. Dad, what the hell did you do? My card was declined. The sound of the coffee faded. Elaine's casement mine. For a moment, the world stopped, and I understood this was just the beginning. His fury was raw, unfiltered, jagged crack that broke the polished mask he always wore. I gently put down the phone, the warmth of my coffee seeping into my palms like an anchor. Across from me, Elaine arched a knowing eyebrow, but I just offered her a thin, steady smile. The clock in my head kept ticking, marking his next move, and mine. The living room was dark, swallowed by the last vestiges of the May twilight. The fading light filtered through the curtains, casting long, fractured shadows on the carpet where so many family evenings had passed. I sat on the old sofa, the same one where I had opened Amelia's socks days before. That memory, once tender, now burned like acid. My phone rested on the coffee table. Its screen flickered over and over, Amelia's name flashing like a warning sign. 17 calls in the last hour. 17 attempts to regain control. The clock on the mantelpiece above me hadn't ticked in years, its hands frozen in silence. And tonight, it felt like a mirror to my decision to stop time from manipulating itself, to break the cycle. I let the phone buzz and vibrate, my fingers tracing the edges of a framed photo. Ellen and Amelia laughing in a sunlit park, captured in a simpler, unattainable past. Another buzz, another flash. Then, silence followed by the hollow ring of a waiting voicemail. I pressed play. Her voice cracked sharp, jagged, venom-laced with desperation. Dad. What the hell? My credit cards were declined. Fix it, or I swear it's over. The word over cut through the silence like a blade. Over. As if I'd betrayed her. As if I'd been the one who bought William a Rolex with money stolen through lies. My chest burned. I stood, needing to move, and walked to the kitchen. The faint lemon scent of polish lingered in the air, a habit I'd maintained long after Ellen's departure. Clinging to the order. The ritual. My hands trembled as I filled the kettle, but my resolve was steely. The phone vibrated again. Another call. This time I answered. Amelia, stop calling. My voice was cold, devoid of warmth. Her retort came quickly, sharply, almost incredulously. Stop calling! You cut me off, Dad. How am I supposed to live? You're being selfish. That word selfish hit like a slap. I bit back the rage rising in my throat. Selfish. My voice was low, deliberate. I paid for your college, your wedding. I covered up your lies. And you call me selfish. You used my money for William's watch. You lied about medical bills. Explain yourself. The kettle hissed behind me, the steam curling like smoke from a fire long without air. At its end, only silence interrupted by short, ragged breaths. Finally, a softer voice kept manipulative. It's not what you think. William is important to us. You wouldn't understand. Just fix the card. Please. That please was poison disguised as innocence. A trick from a girl-turned-woman who had already outgrown it. No. The word was final. You made your choices. Live with them. I hung up. My heart pounded against my ribs, but my resolve didn't waver. The phone vibrated again. Voicemail. I pressed play, bracing for impact. His voice returned, now colder, laced with threat. You'll regret it. Liam won't let this go. Liam. Her spineless husband, always in her shadow. Now a weapon. Now a threat eye. Put down the phone. Darkness pressed against the windows. The house shrinking around me. I touched the cold bronze of the clock stopped on the mantel. A memory surfaced. Amelia at 10 running to me after a fight with friends. Tears soaking my shirt, my arms, her sanctuary. Then I was security. Now I was the obstacle in her way. The kettle squeaked, as piercing as her voice, and I poured the tea. The steam blurred the image of her smile until it dissolved into mist. She was no longer that little girl, and I was no longer the endlessly forgiving father. The phone lit up again. This time it wasn't Amelia. Text from Elaine. Police station tomorrow. 8 a.m. Amelia and Liam filed a report. I'm with you. My stomach sank. An accusation. Legal lines crossed. War. Escalating. The shadows around me deepened. The silence of the stopped clock, louder than ever. But I straightened up. I left the tea untouched. Whatever my daughter was planning, whatever lies she and Liam were weaving, you will face Italiano. The fight was no longer whispered on the phone. It was real. Official. And it was just beginning. The next morning, the police station smelled of burnt coffee and cheap ink. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry insects. I sat in a cramped office, the chair stiff beneath me, an open manila folder on the desk. Officer Daniels, a burly man with a skeptical frown, was flipping through the complaint, his eyes lifted, staring at me as if I were already guilty. Elaine was at my side, placed impeccably, her presence like armor. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was war, and Amelia had just made her first move. Outside, the city of Chicago wore a heavy gray blanket. Clouds pressed low, reducing the horizon to shadow and steel. It was morning, but it seemed the day had yet to awaken. That heaviness mirrored the weight on my chest, a pressure no deep breath could relieve. I was there because Amelia and Liam had struck first, not with apologies, not with shame, but with retaliation. They'd gone to the police, accusing Mimi of financial abuse, for cutting off their access to my money. The audacity of it burned like acid in my veins. But in front of me stood Elaine, her steady gaze anchoring me, reminding me that I wasn't facing this storm alone. Detective Daniels cleared his throat, his voice raspy, like gravel, the kind that already judges before the trial even begins. Mr. Thompson, he said tersely, your daughter and son-in-law claim that you have restricted their access to family funds, causing them financial hardship. Would you like to explain? The way he said family funds made it sound like I'd stolen from them, as if I were already guilty. My fingers tightened around the pen I held. Its cheap plastic edges bit into my palm, reminding me of the moment. When I spoke, my voice was calm, but steely. Family funds, I repeated. It's my money. They spent $10,000 on a watch. For someone else, I blocked their access to stop the theft. The word robbery hung in the air, heavy, true. Undeniable that Daniels raised a skeptical eyebrow, scribbling something in his notebook. Before his silence could backfire on me, Elaine leaned forward. Her voice was crisp, authoritative, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. Officer, my client has every right to protect his assets, he said. His daughter, Amelia, misrepresented expenses and used his card for unauthorized purchases. We have evidence. With deliberate precision, he slid a folder across the desk. Bank statements, receipts, a jeweler's confirmation, evidence that couldn't be twisted. This isn't abuse, Elaine finished, her tone sharp as glass. It's self-defense. Daniels flipped through the papers, frowning. This says the purchase was a Rolex, he muttered, almost to himself. Then he looked up, skeptical but changing. Are you saying she lied about the purpose? Finally his doubt was no longer against me, but against Amelia. I caught his eye. Exactly, I said calmly. He told me it was for medical bills. It wasn't. The memory of her voice saying those words echoed in my head. Amelia's practiced trembling, the plea for help, the hidden manipulation, and beside her, in my mind, was Liam. Years ago, smiling that slippery smile, promising to take care of her. I believed him. Now he was with her in this complaint, hiding behind his venom. Elaine's hand brushed my arm, subtly reminding me of reality. Her voice hardened. Officer, this complaint is retaliatory. Mr. Thompson acted within his rights. If anything, we're considering fraud charges against them. Daniels leaned back in his chair. The weight in the room shifted. For the first time, it wasn't crushing me. We'll review this, he finally said, closing the folder with a sharp click. But I'll need statements from both sides. He stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. Relief seeped into my chest like the first breath after surfacing from a deep dive. Elaine gathered her papers, without a hint of hesitation. I followed her outside into the cold city air. His car was warmer than the police station, the leather seat smelling faintly of polish and mint bubblegum. The world outside was a gray blur against the glass. But inside, the murmur of the engine was steady. Safe. They're desperate, Elaine said as she pulled away, her watch gleaming in the dim light. Filing a complaint like that is weak. We've got them on the ropes. I nodded, looking out at the rain-dark streets. My voice was low but heavy. Liam's name was on that report. I didn't expect that. He'd always been Amelia's shadow, silent, obedient, content to let her scheme. But now he was walking into the fire with her. That betrayal hurt more than he'd admit. Elaine's lips curved into a cold smile. He's scared. But we're not done yet. Then his eyes settled on me, a spark of insight. Have you thought about your will, Paul? Maybe it's time to rewrite some things. The words landed softly, but with weight. A seed, dark and inevitable, planted in my chest. I took out my notebook, its pages already stained with Amelia's lies. My pen felt heavier than before, like a judgment tool. I wrote one word. Testament. Every stroke felt final. Every letter, a step toward the inevitable. The notary's office was an oasis of calm amid the hustle and bustle of Chicago's midday. The air smelled of aged paper, leather bindings, and polished oak. I sat at the heavy table, a pile of documents in front of me. Each page was another brick in the wall I was building against Amelia's greed. Elaine stood nearby, reviewing the terms with a sharp eye. The sunlight filtering through the high windows made her presence seem almost haloed steadfast, unflappable. My hands were cold as I gripped the pen, rewriting my will, cutting Amelia out. It felt like betrayal, like twisting a knife through the ghost of Ellen, my wife. But it was also something else. Freedom. The notary adjusted his glasses, his silver hair gleaming in the light. His voice was soft, but each word struck a chord. Mr. Thompson, this new will designates your estate into a trust, with Ms. Carter as executor. Is that correct? My throat tightened, but my voice was firm. That's right. No direct beneficiaries. The words cut deep. I remembered the nights after Ellen's death, Amelia barely 12 years old. Her future, my only purpose. I'd sworn to give her everything. Legacy, security, love. And now, I was erasing her name. Elaine's eyes met mine, her smile small but confident. You're doing the right thing, Paul. This cuts off their dreams from your money. Clean cut. Then, more gently, with a touch of humor. Besides, I'm a very good executor. I actually laughed, a rusty sound in my throat, the tension easing for a fragile moment. The pen scratched across the first page, strong in the silence. Definitive dot. With each signature, she severed a bond. With each stroke of ink, Amelia's control loosened. The notary signed the papers, the exact movements. All done, he said. The copies will be filed at the end of the day. All done. I stood up. The relief strange, almost foreign, like letting go of a weight I'd carried for so long. I'd forgotten how light it was. Outside, the spring light touched my face. The city vibrated with life cars, racing by children laughing. A world that hadn't stopped turning despite my war. Elaine and I walked to a nearby park, the grass vivid, the air cleaner and crisper. I sat on a bench, watching a bird slice through the sky, its wings gleaming in the light. Freedom. Hot one. But mine. This changes everything, I murmured, almost to myself, but in my chest, a question burned brighter. How far would Amelia go, now that I had taken everything from her? Climax. Voiceover. Tone. The watch on Elaine's wrist ticked softly, reminding me that Taimim was finally mine to claim. But in the silence between each second, I felt something else stir. Amelia wasn't finished. And neither do I. The porch creaked under their weight. Amelia stood there, with Liam at her side, stripped of her usual arrogance, her polished facade cracking like old plaster. Her auburn hair, once perfectly styled to dominate every room, was loose, disheveled, and her red-rimmed eyes betrayed sleepless nights. Liam's shoulders slumped, his hands buried in his pockets, as if he wanted to disappear into himself. I watched the scene, the two of us huddled against the morning breeze. My own house framed the moment. The smell of damp earth and blooming azaleas rising from the garden, the golden sunlight reflecting off the dew on the banister. Everything in the house spoke of a hard-won peace, a peace I wouldn't surrender. I didn't step aside. I didn't soften my stance. I crossed my arms, firm as an oak beneath my feet. What do you want? I asked, my voice level, controlled. A tone I'd never used with Amelia before because I was once too indulgent, too eager to keep her around. Not anymore. Her lips trembled. Dad, please. The word Dad cut through the air like a worn blade. Before, I would have melted. Now, it just sounded hollow. We're sorry. We made mistakes. She gripped her purse, her nails digging so deep into the leather strap she could almost hear it tighten. T. 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 Duh. T. Money? It was a mistake. Let us fix it. Her eyes searched for weakness in mine, that old soft side I could mold like clay. But behind her plea, I saw it. Calculation, a gambler betting on one more hand. Beside her, Liam cleared his throat. His voice cracked under the weight of his own cowardice. Yes, Paul. We didn't mean to hurt you. Things got out of hand. He dared to look at Amelia, waiting for her cue, waiting for her to lead, always hiding behind her. I let the silence hang between us, heavy and sharp, as only silence can. The ticking in my mind returned the clock I'd heard since it all began, a relentless metronome of justice. Tick, tick, tick. And in that pause, memories pressed in. Amelia's voicemails, dripping with venom and threats. William's fury as he slammed the Rolex case shut. Elaine's firm hand on my arm, urging me to be patient. Years of sacrifice college tuition. Sleepless nights. Deferred dreams only for Amelia to trade my love for greed. I straightened up, the morning sun at my back, casting my shadow over them. "No," I said, each word deliberate. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Every lie, every theft, every time you looked me in the eye thinking I wouldn't notice. That wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." Amelia shuddered, her eyes filling with tears, although she knew crying came easily when it suited her. "Dad, please, we have nothing left. We just need." Her voice broke, desperate. But I interrupted her. "Do you need me?" My voice was steel now, sharp enough to pierce every mask I wore. "You needed me when I paid your tuition. You needed me when I kept the lights on, when I covered your debts, when I gave until I had nothing left. And in return," I reached into my pocket and pulled out the Rolex case William had returned to me. I held it up, letting the sunlight shine on its polished surface. "In return, they bought this." My voice dropped to a whisper, thick with contempt. "Not a gift, not a relic, just a my sacrifice turned into their trophy." Amelia's eyes fixed on the box, panic crossing her face. Liam shifted uncomfortably beside her, suddenly less confident, his hands restless. I let the silence linger. The ticking in my head grew louder. Tick, tick, tick. "They came here thinking I'd give in," I said finally, "that I'd let guilt or blood bind me again. But I'm done being their fool." The porch felt colder now, even though the sun was still shining. Amelia's breathing quickened. For the first time, she seemed small, truly small. And yet, beneath the desperation, there was still a glimmer in his eyes. Something dangerous. A glimmer that told me he hadn't come just to apologize. No, this was something else. A plea, or a trap. My phone vibrated in my pocket, breaking the air between us. I looked at the screen. William. Another call. Another thread in this tightening web. I looked back at Amelia, her voice trembling now. "Dad, please. Just give us one more chance." But the clock in my mind ticked louder than ever. Tick, 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 and I realized something chilling. This wasn't the end of their game. It was just the beginning of their next move. The air shifted, heavy with unspoken threats, and as I gripped the Rolex case tighter in my hand, I knew the fight wasn't over. Not even for a long stretch. Cut to black.